Hi again, everybody, and welcome back to our final Coach's Corner for 2015 for the Robert E. Lee Red Raiders, who won on Friday night and wound up in a tie for fourth place in the district, but no cigar as far as the playoffs were concerned because of tiebreakers, which Coach Gerald Piskey is going to explain to us.
Oh, thanks.
In just a moment. But the Red Raiders went out in style on Friday night at Trinity Mother Frances Rose Stadium with a 41-35 come-from-behind win over Naaman Forest. It got a little hairy at the end of that game the other night, didn't it?
Yeah, well, really most of the game it was pretty hairy. I think we talked last week on the show about we couldn't figure out how they had not won a game,
right.
And I don't think anybody, the kids didn't listen to us. I think they listened to everybody else about they were 0-9.
And they reminded them you scored 72 on them, 75 on them last year and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, so it was a challenge. It was a little frustrating.
But in the end, you won. Let's just talk about let's forget the bad stuff, okay? Let's talk about the good stuff.
Is it that easy to do?
I don't know. With about 4 minutes left,
okay.
You guys are still down 9.
Mm-hmm.
And let's take it through the sequence. Your defense had not stopped them. They were pretty one-dimensional. They were just running the ball, but they were running it effectively. And then what changed?
Well, we just got some stops when we needed to. The safeties got more involved, and then was able to get some stops when we needed to. And they went for a 4th and 1, gave us the ball, pretty good field position. And then offensively, we were able to capitalize on it and go score. I guess we can explain when we were down 15 why we didn't go for 2. The first touchdown was scored, since even my wife asked me this weekend. But, when we were down 15, you didn't want to chase that extra possession early. Then to come find out, I didn't realize Bloss had missed that last extra point. I saw him kick it, looked good to me, and I turned, walked away. And a little while later, I was going, why are we down 9? It should be 8.
Okay, yeah.
And that way, the last possession, then if you got, score then, you go for the 2 there. But, kids just, really just kind of bowed their neck, and they knew, how bad they'd played up to that point, and really, honestly, just kind of how embarrassing, it was. That's what we talk about at halftime. It's pretty embarrassing display of football on our part, and so they just had the will and desire to go get it done, was able to go through and do that.
And those 2 defensive stops, I think Braden got tackled and he and some of his teammates got one, and then Samples blocked. Was that on a 4th down?
Yeah, it's a 4th.
Where he batted down that 4th and 1 pass.
Well,
right?
Actually, the 4th and 1, that's when Braden got his stop. The 4th and 5, they went for it, on their own end of the field. They were on their 45 or so and went for it. And John knocking it down, was a big play and gave us good field position for that last touchdown.
So but again, you get these opportunities, you got to make them happen. And right after the 1 stop, Boy took 1 play or 2 plays? Zach
one,
Hall,
I think he threw it to
Barker.
Ijuan. Ijuan made a great play. Zach made a good throw, and Ijuan made a great play and was able to score on that one.
And then you got the other defensive stop, and it didn't take long. I think a run and a pass, maybe to Tyree Grayson, got you down close, and then Zach from 11 yards out. Right?
Yeah, we threw a ball down there and got Tyreek got us down there, and then got a little penalty and had to back us up a little bit, and we had a run down there, and then of course Zach came in from 11, and then made the 2-point conversion to put us up 6.
Well, and again, what he did was allow you to finish the district play at 4-3, and gave you an opportunity. At that point, you didn't know what was going on with the other 2 games in the district, but it gave you an opportunity to make the playoffs. How excited were the kids? Excited, relieved? How about the coaches? Excited, relieved? What were your emotions like?
Well, at halftime we'd already looked to see where the Saxon Rowlett game was, and at that time Saxon was ahead. And then after our game,
which you needed to have happen. You needed them to win.
That's right. And then after our game, of course, somebody checked it right away on that Friday Night Rivals app. It's pretty up to date, and Saxon was still winning. It's kind of a back and forth game. So, just to be able to tell the kids, biggest thing, is like at halftime we talked about, I let them know that Saxe was winning their game, and so they were doing their part, and we're the only ones
and
that weren't.
Rockwall was winning their
That's
game.
right. That's right. And
over
so,
Garland.
really, what we're talking about at halftime is we're the only ones not doing our part. And so, after you get the game and get all that, it's it's a pretty big letdown when you later on. I guess right before we left the field house, we got the final at 44-34 on the Rowlett over Saxe game, which eliminated us. It acted as a tie for third for 3 spots, and then the interpretation of the tiebreaker just worked against us.
You kind of want to take a moment to try to explain the interpretation of that tiebreaker?
Well, really, they finally got it to one that we could all live with, because that's been the big argument the whole time, is points are used to eliminate ties, not to advance. I can promise you to be looked at a whole lot more thoroughly in the future when you go into a district and look at the wording of it and how it's interpreted in all scenarios. But basically what ended up happening in the final, we were going to have an emergency DEC meeting Friday morning, and then through all the principals, the voting delegates on our district committee, talking to each other on Thursday night. Mr. Brown had been an advocate, trying to get it figured out. We felt like we should be the fourth representative, but they finally got an interpretation. Our rules state, first thing's head to head. Next up is we use positive and negative points. Points are used to eliminate ties, not to advance. That's the key phrase there. And so the final interpretation that we got, it ended up with us, Saxe, and Garland tied at 4-3 for third place. And so on the tiebreaker points, positive and negative, Saxe was +10, Garland was 0, we were -10.
Because Rowlett and Saxe had beaten you pretty handily, hadn't they?
Well, Saxe, it was Saxe, Garland, and ourselves,
Right,
so
okay,
that's the only
right.
3 involved. So Saxe had beaten us that first district game.
Garland beat Saxe.
That's right.
Yeah.
Saxe had beaten us by the +14, so that put them at +14, us -14. Garland beat Saxe by 4, so that puts Saxe at 10, Garland's at +4. Well, we beat Garland by 4, so now Saxe's +10, Garland's at 0, and we're at -10,
-10,
because of
okay.
the Saxe game. And so for third place, they take us out of the tiebreaker. Garland beat Saxe head-to-head, so Garland's awarded third place. Now return us to the mix for fourth place. Now us and Saxe are tied for fourth place.
And Saxe beat
Saxe
you.
beat us head-to-head, so we're out. So nobody advanced on points. The points were used to eliminate the tie. Garland beat Saxe. Now us
Okay.
and Saxe are tied
Are
head-to-head.
you okay with that?
Yeah, once they finally got that explanation out there, and that's what I told Mr. Brown, because he said, hey, we'll go over and we'll battle till the end. And I said, no, if that's the interpretation, that's a correct interpretation, and they did it correctly.
Okay.
So,
And I know it's disappointing for everybody, but still, how would you give me an overall characterization before we get into specifics of the season? How did you think the season went?
well, we spent a lot of time, my wife and I did this weekend discussing the season. I felt like with the circumstances that we encountered with injuries or removals or whatever, really, we blew the Lufkin game. I think Keller Fossil Ridge had done a better job in the summer with summer conditioning, and that's why they pulled away there at the end. The Lufkin game was just a blown deal at halftime. We as coaches made mistakes in the second half. Our kids didn't believe, that it wasn't over, and so we blew that game. And other than that, with the cards we were dealt, we felt like 6-4 would have been the mark we should have achieved. And you'd hope for miracles and other stuff, but just looking at it honestly, that's what my wife and I discussed last night, or I guess Sunday after church, sitting around visiting.
Yeah, could you make the argument, and again, you had a 34-3 lead over Lufkin. Could you make the argument, though, that in the end, the Lufkin game didn't hurt you, and it was a non-district ball game, hurt your feelings, hurt all of our feelings pretty badly, but did it do something to these guys that made them realize that later on, when they needed to come back against Lakeview Centennial, Garland, and as it turned out, Naaman Forest, that they realized that it was possible? Do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, is that...
And the JT game. I mean,
Yeah.
really, when we were head JT game, 20 points
didn't
or whatever
let
at
up,
half,
right.
they understood that, hey, we've seen this happen before.
I
and
mean,
so,
it may be a stupid question. In a backhanded sort of way, the Lufkin game make a point that maybe helped them later on down the line.
yeah, I'm sure it did. Hopefully we learned from it. It looked like, it appeared that we learned from it, but, you know, that's the thing about a season is you always have lessons that come at you. Some are good, some are bad lessons, and so are hard lessons. And that was a hard one, but yeah, it helped us. I mean, it doesn't make us feel any better, and you know, but in the long run, if they can learn some lessons from it, then that's a good thing.
Getting back to the season, some of the highlights, John Tyler, with that as far as an early season non-district highlight, that was a big highlight.
Yeah,
for
I thought
you
we
this year.
played pretty good. You know, defense didn't play bad that week, and you know, thought we had it going pretty good there. You know, had some areas that we needed to work on defensively, but overall, you know, thought we played a pretty good football game. As you know, as you always do in a rivalry, it's going to raise your level of play, but it also shows your kids that, hey, we can play at that level, because we were at that level for half of the Lufkin game and then fell off that second half. But, you know, that's probably a high point. And then really the guys overcoming, you know, losing Zach, you know, for those few ball games and being able to pull one off against Lakeview, who's a pretty good football team and competitive. You know, they were right there in the hunt all year. For
You
the
did that
district
without
games.
Zach. That was
Yeah,
Chan
that's right.
Samey's game.
That's right. For those guys to be able to rally around, you know, the first couple of district games, you know, kind of shocked, figuring out an identity without, you know, kind of like the Cowboys, they're still trying to figure it out without Romo, but being able to try to figure out the identity and how it fits and how it all works, those first two against a couple of pretty good teams, and then, you know, for those guys to come back against Saxon, Chance step in, do what he did, and team rally around him, pull that off against Lakeview was big.
We'll get back to some of the other games. Just final thoughts about the Naaman game. Superlative players. I mean,
yeah, we had.
That week. What'd you get?
Well, you know, offensively, of course, Zach's back. You know, he looked his old self the other night, hitting his jets and doing all the things. He had made the cuts before. You know, earlier few other games he had started making those juke and jive and cuts, but to see him be able to hit the jets and run like he ran in the past was good for him and good for us. Braden Coates was the defensive player of the game, and did that on heredity. And was able to go through. And he's done a good job. You know, we look up there, and you know, he'd lost his sidekick Campbell in there, and to be able to step in, and you know, Braden, you know, he's just one of those guys that just plays hard, and does what you ask him to do, and you like those kind of kids. And then on special teams, Chris Bloss, you know, was the MVP. His punts were pretty good. He's done a good job all year with that.
Led the district in punting.
Actually leads the district in punting. And so, you know, to be able to do that, you know, helped us a bunch in those situations.
You made some errors, judgment errors in that ball game. Roughed kicker, had a field goal blocked, had a celebration penalty. I'm just trying to think. Those are the kind of things that you know, the kids just have to. That stuff has to get cleaned up if you're going to.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. You know, as coaches, that's the kind that just drives you nuts. You know, on the blocked punt, we weren't going to go after it. And then, you know, we talked about it because young man has blocked a couple of punts this year, so we sent everybody else do Jesse James, which is our hold-up return. One guy's going, and he's only going to go if it's a bad snap. Don't jump, don't leave your feet, and do not rough that punter. And then when a kid roughs the punter on that same play, the kid you just talked to, it makes you pull your hair out. And then, you know, the celebration penalty at that time of the game. You know, it's pretty frustrating. That's what causes coaches to live shorter lives.
But the guys didn't give up. I mean, again, I got to admit, I mean, doing the ball game up there after the roughing the kicker, you know, that extended their drive. They had 2 6-minute drives in the second half, and they were eating the clock up because they weren't throwing. I don't know if this is going to happen or not. And sure enough, it did. So thankfully, your players didn't give up.
Yeah, that's right. You know, and that's the, you know, I guess that's the lessons they learned from the Lufkin game and stuff like that, and the Lakeview game and the Garland game is, you know, if we'll just keep battling till the end, which is all you can do. You know, if you know the clock's going to keep going, so you might as well play till that final second ticks off, good or bad. But you're not going to pause the clock because you're behind. So luckily, we were proud of them for doing that, and these seniors, you know, really wanting to go out with that victory and end on top and keep their hopes alive, and so, you know, you got to be proud for that.
Let's just kind of shout out to some of those young men. I don't know if you remember all 31 of them, but
Lord.
It was senior night. But just, you know, just at least a word about the job these guys.
Well, they did. I mean, they overcame a lot. You know, they've helped us get to the playoffs last year. Felt like we'd learned a lesson from the Midway game, where the big stage had gotten us a little bit. Felt like, and and then the adversity they faced this year, losing, like I say, losing Zach for a time period, and then losing some key defensive players for various reasons, very important defensive players, and so just to be able to fight through that and still end up, winning that last game and having a shot at the playoffs and controlling, the part they could control on Friday night, and it's not just all of them. You think of guys, little Gaston, he didn't get to play a lot, but he showed up every day
What's
for
his
practice. DeAndre Gaston.
Okay, all right.
Had broke his wrist early in the year, and really, just showed up every day at practice. If coach wanted him to read the script to him, while he was signaling, then he'd sit over and read the script to him. And guys like that, those are the ones, that you remember forever. The star players, the really good
kid
ones.
like Jack Sherrill.
Jack Sherrill showed up, was
Right.
kicking, realized he couldn't kick, couldn't beat the other two guys out at kicking, was the third kicker, and went to play receiver and showed up every day and worked receiver.
Courthour, right? Courthour, I believe.
Courthour, worked there at safety. And those guys, where those guys help you a lot is on scout team. Been out there on Monday through Wednesday or Monday through Thursday, doing the scout team thing, running the other people's secondary, running the other people's routes to give our guys a look. The JV players aren't as experienced as them, understanding things, and so you always got to do that. And you're always going to have out of a group of seniors, there's always some that you really are going to miss just because they're that kind of kids.
Right.
And then you hope for your other guys that they're going to get to go on. Some of them will have an opportunity to go on to the next level. And the ones that some of them want it and some of them don't want it. And so the ones that want it, you hope that they can get that chance.
A young man of his first name, I know him, his first name skip him in mind. That's what happens when you get old. Hill, safety.
Now you're going to
anyway,
Hayden Hill.
No.
Nope. Caleb Hill.
No, anyway.
Good Lord.
But
hurt his shoulder and can't
yeah,
play.
but anyway, the young man, and I know him, and I for the life of me right now.
He's a good one.
But anyway, would have been a starter for you. But, there are kids like that in the program, hurt his shoulder, couldn't
going
get.
to start for us last year.
Right, couldn't get healthy,
And,
but was, your hats off to those guys.
Yeah.
Because they were still kind of sort of a part of the program, even though they weren't
That's
playing,
right. Came back out, tried again this year.
Hudson Hill.
Hudson Hill, there you go. I had Hayden
Right.
Hill in Fairfield.
No
so
Hudson Webb,
all these
yeah.
Hills, we've got Caleb Hill with us
Right,
right now. So that's why they
But
don't
Hud
ask
Hill,
old man
players
questions.
like that.
But yeah, he had his surgery last year and thought he had it fixed. And early in the year this year, he just reached out and it came out. And visiting with him and his dad, and mom, he wanted to try some more. But we talked about life, and it's about being able to function in life later.
Right.
You can still be a part of the team and do. And Hud's always done, what we ask him to do.
Absolutely.
And been a big contributor and done things, And Matt Jones is a junior, but he, had a concussion, was out for the remainder of the year, and still showed up to practice.
Right.
Just guys like that did those things, and helped you.
Now, Matt's
in
an
the way they
underclassman.
could. Yeah, that's right.
He'll
He's
be
a
back
junior,
next
so
year,
he'll
right?
be
Yeah.
he'll be back next year. But just kids like that, make it all worthwhile, and to see them after the game. Some of them come in, give you a hug, and tell you they love you, and stuff like that, with tears in their eyes. So, it's just always really the bond you get with them. A lot of times, sometimes they don't like you and you don't like them. It's a mutual don't like some days. But in the end, we're all here together. And the bonds they developed as teammates.
It's kind of like a family. I mean,
It really is.
Like your family members every day.
Yeah, that's right.
Love them, but you might not like them every minute of every day.
So, that's
right?
the thing about high school football. It makes it so special is that's the memories they're going to carry forever, even when they're our age.
And remember the wins and try to forget the losses because everybody has both of them. Some of the young men who might be recruited out of this class, Zach Hall.
Well,
for
Zach,
sure.
of course, he'll being back to himself, he'll have some opportunities again. Checking on some things today for him, college that had offered him, trying to make sure it still stands. If so, he'd like to accept it, and I'll, let him release that, if it works out.
Okay.
But, Ijuan Barker, John Samples, Jerry Viella, some of those guys, Tavon Wesley, all those guys have been getting some looks, and it just, it's going to depend on what those colleges need and how they think they fit, and they may they may want to go at this level, but some of those guys at that level may not want them, and they may have to go to this level. But just to get your college, part of your college paid for, all of it paid for, and get the chance to continue to play ball, there'll be a lot of kids. Some of them may end up in D3 schools, but those guys that want to play and have done their part with their grades,
Right.
They'll be able to find a chance to play football at the next level.
That'd be fun for them. All right, let's talk a little bit about next year, and then we'll let you say thanks to a few folks that we always try to do on the last show of the year. As you look ahead to next year, let's talk about some of the young men who contributed this year that'll be back next season.
Well, we had Keyshawn Davis at receiver,
Right.
that had not played football up to this point, been straight basketball. He's going to be pretty good. Offensively, we had a lot of seniors, but Devon Morgan and JJ, some of those guys on the line are going to have to anchor that line. We had Canifax up, Perez up, Santos Perez up. Those guys will be the nucleus of the line next year. Of course, the offense is going to center around Chance Amy. Chance got a chance to be really good.
It was pretty good.
Physical kids, going to continue to work on his mechanics.
Started
get a lot better.
3 games, I believe? Or
Yeah,
4?
3 of them.
3 of them.
And so got a chance to be pretty good, finding the cast around him and how to make it work and all that, will be the key to that. Because like I say, I think 9 of the 11, maybe 8 of the 11 at the end were seniors on offense. And so be able to get those guys going. And then on the defensive side, of course, Mikhail Sanders and Campbell Miller, Niedryer up front. Those guys have to anchor that defense next year. I think we'll have 4 returners on the defensive side of the ball. So there'll be some guys. Those guys have to anchor it. Our JV struggled a little bit this year, but that's because most of the backups, anybody that could be starting on the JV was a backup on the varsity, especially the O-line. A lot of those JV O-linemen that should have been playing and could have been helping our JV be successful were all up on the varsity. So, it'll be, you just see who's going to meet the challenge, who's going to do the work between now. It starts now. We'll pick up equipment for about 2 days, and then we'll hit off season in the weight room and get that going. It's going to be who buys in to determine, they're going to make themselves a player. They've got, a lot of time left before next football season, and so they can get in the weight room and out there on the speed and agility with Coach Long and be able to turn themselves into a football player.
What about the freshman group, some of the young men?
Yeah, freshmen, what you really like about that freshman group is they've got some big kids. That's what we've been missing here the last few years is some really good size on O-line, D-line. We've got some kids that's got size on that freshman team, but we've also got some kids that got some length. And really they competed. I think their last game they lost 42-41, tried a field goal there at the end. Little Hawk, Matthew's little brother down there kicking. And
he's a kicker too.
30-something yard field goal, I think, and fell about 5 yards short. It was dead in the heart on the last play of the game, try to win that game. The games they lost 28-27, they lost 34-33. And so what you liked about that group is they just continued to battle. They'll need to hit the weight room hard. You see a lot of them. There's a core group, McCray and some of those guys going in that weight room after they finished their period during their lunch. They've been going in the weight room lifting all year long extra. And so if they'll continue with that mentality, that's going to help them and turn them into pretty good football players.
A couple of young men who started actually or played a lot Friday night. They're both sophomores. And there's others. I don't mean to overlook anybody, but a linebacker named David Antunes, and Rhett Parker, Mason's little brother. He had a heck of a ball game.
Yeah, I tell you
that.
And that's what we talked about after the game. Well, defensively, he's never played inside linebacker. But on the weekend, we were so short with Dorsey out, Miller out, trying to figure out we got to find a linebacker. And there wasn't, any more outside of Antunes had already come up the week before at the JV level that we felt like could play on Friday night. And so, we just took Rhett. I said, hey, Rhett's a competitor and he'll hit you. Put his tail in there. And it's funny watching film this weekend. It's really funny early when the guards pull and you can tell he's not reading his guard because him and Braden ran smack into each other.
Okay. All right.
Braden read his guard, but Rhett was looking in the backfield. But to see his progression towards the end of the game where he's actually reading the guards and getting where he's supposed to fit. And Antunes, he got better from last week. You know, his first live action was Rockwall
Right.
last week,
That's
which
tough,
is
tough way to
welcome
debut,
to
right?
varsity
Yeah.
football.
Right.
Kind of like Tyreek a couple of years ago against Horn when he got his head blown up on that jet
Braden's
sweep.
first game as a sophomore was against Longview.
Yeah,
Lord.
Halloween. That'd be a nightmare.
But those are tough games.
Yeah,
isn't
that's
it?
right. And the speed's just so much different. You can't simulate it in practice. So yeah, though, you know, Antuna stepped in the other night, did a good job. And then, you know, Rhett, it's funny, out of the inside receivers, Rhett's the slowest between Tyreek, Mason, and him. He's the slowest of the three, but he was the one on Friday night.
Doing Mason Parker, right?
No, Rhett's the slowest of those three at inside receiver.
Okay.
But Rhett's the one that kept the jet sweep outside where it belongs and went in the end zone untouched.
Right.
Those other guys impatient cutting up and had to fight for their touchdown. And so those guys, you know, next year they'll do things right, and if they'll work hard, and we got to have a better summer than we
They'll
had
be core
last year.
players next year. Both
Yeah,
those,
that's right.
Both
Oh,
those
yeah.
young men.
Oh,
I know we're overlooking some guys. Don't mean to do that. But anyway, it all starts. Now you haven't. This is a realignment year, so we don't know the schedule exactly just yet, right?
No, we hadn't got them all locked in, and you know we're still kind of working on that week one
The classic.
the classic game, trying to get an East Texas team, you know, involved in that. Waiting to hear from just one school. That's all we got left since
Okay.
JT and Longview both be coming up. We'd talked to Longview about playing, and so we've got our 2 and 3. Pretty sure it's going to be Lufkin 2 and NAC 3, depending on NAC being able to move something around.
Okay, great.
You know, week 4, if we need it, depending on the number of districts, will be Rowlett, because we don't think we're going to be back in their district, but you know, who really knows at this point. So really all we're working on is that first ball game, knowing that it's going to be part of the Classic.
Well, I'll help you with this, but we've got about 2.5 minutes left. Let's say thank you to some folks because there's always a few of those guys, so let's do that.
Well, really you got to start with the Booster Club and those ladies, you know, and I say ladies and men that do so much
Atlanta
for us.
Parker and Shelley Calhoun.
They've headed it up.
Yeah.
They, you know, both had senior boys. Of course, Atlanta's going to have to continue with
Yes.
Red in the program. But they do so much behind the scenes for the kids. The helmet dads.
Todd Parker, White Calhoun.
Yeah, that's
the
right.
Dads.
The helmet dads,
Yeah.
Mr. Russell, and all those guys.
Breckle,
all of them.
Breckle, all of them, yeah.
Just
I'm
contributing.
overlooking, I don't mean to, but a ton of
Yeah,
those guys.
I could have wrote a whole list down.
Right.
But, you know, they haul that helmet to the home games and out-of-town
Right.
games and set it up and do all that, and especially with the way this has been this year, you know, and administration for helping us, you know, Mr. Brown, Priest, and Dr. Crawford, all the support they've given. You know, it's been pretty crazy changing
Yeah.
games, and we played, really we felt like a college team. I think we played 4 Thursdays and 2 Saturdays and just a few Fridays. So, you know, those guys being able to help us do that. And, you know, Miss Pretty, I can't leave Miss Pretty out. She's not down there in the field house anymore, but she still helps us with sending out our release time and
Right.
kids and all that. You
Band,
know,
cheerleaders, drill team.
boy, we couldn't do it without them. You know, we tried one game. North Garden was an absolute nightmare.
Almost, yeah, that one.
Yeah, so you know, Miss Nash and Mr. Steele with the groups, you know, supporting us and always being loud and proud in the stands. And
Bellegarde. Let's see who else.
well, you can keep naming. I mean,
Well, I just, you know.
it's well, you need to keep naming. We hadn't done so well on being put on the spot today, but they. You know, there's just a lot of groups behind the scenes. It's just a big old fun deal. The student section, you know, we
Right.
actually have a student section up there making the noise.
Oh, they do.
And getting excited. So, you know, really last Friday night at the end of the game when we were coming back to win it, you know, that's just what makes you keep doing it. All the lows and stuff, to have that group up there and the fans were wild and just that feeling you have inside knowing that everybody's pretty excited about the same thing.
Again, don't mean to overlook anybody, but thanks to everybody involved for making 2015 a good season for the Red Raiders. And again, the next one will be just around the corner. The off-season starts immediately, and the Red Raiders ended it on a high note, 41-35. They beat Naaman Forest this past Friday night, finished 5-5 overall, 4-3 in the district. Missed the playoffs this year, but still a very good season thanks to the seniors and the parents of all the seniors. It's been an honor as a parent of one of those seniors to have shared that time with each of you as well and see these kids grow up. For Coach Piskey and the Red Raiders, I'm Bill Coates. Thanks for joining us.